You're listening to the Analog Dungeon, a podcast where I present a dungeon module or pre-printed adventure from the storied history of D&D to my friend, and we make jokes about it. In this episode, it's the module that was truly too hot for TSR. We try to separate fact from fiction as we explore the infamous B3, Palace of the Silver Princess. This is part 1 of 4. Enjoy! Jeremy.
Russell.
We have got a very interesting dungeon tonight.
Okay.
Like some of our other dungeons, not just interesting because of its contents, or, as we're going to find out, the lack thereof. In a little bit of foreshadowing.
Weird.
But also because of the really tangled, twisted history that is behind B3, Palace of the Silver Princess.
Wow.
This is a very, very odd story. Odd in the sense that there's many different versions of this story, and it is quite possibly one of the most talked about urban legends that has been told and retold about the early days of D&D, even more so than the Mazes and Monsters disappearance. That wasn't actually a whole thing in and of itself.
Right.
But so because of all the different, early apocryphal stuff about D&D, our goal today is to dive in, to crawl through a bit of the history, and to explain a little bit about why this story was so compelling in the first place, but also why it's kind of twisted itself up in the years since 1981, when Palace of the Silver Princess was first printed.
So I'm not going to say familiar, but I have heard about this. I think you could, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think you could call this dungeon maybe more so than any other infamous.
Infamous is a very good word to describe the things around it. We're going to get into some accusations of misogyny. We're going to get into toxic workplace stuff. There are a lot of really just hard feelings surrounding some of the pieces of this. And in some cases, those feelings are definitely earned. In others, over time, history and retelling, lots of different things may have become a little bit embellished. But we hope to at least provide a more nuanced, more kind of not fully comprehensive, but at least a broad enough sourced set of information for how Palace of the Silver Princess was published, was recalled on the same day that it was published.
Unpublished, if you will.
And how thousands of copies were thrown into the Lake Geneva landfills under the supervision of TSR's handyman.
Wait, really?
This is really the history.
That note I did not know. This is like the ET for Atari 2600 of D&D. Wow. Okay. Yes. I'm sold. I cannot wait.
So there are things that people may have heard, may not have heard, but ultimately it's important to think a little bit carefully about how we approach this. First off, these are real people we're talking about. These are real people whose work was influential in the early days of Dungeons & Dragons. These are people who had competing ideas of what was good or right or proper or acceptable, and this was all set during one of the biggest influences in D&D's history, the Satanic Panic.
Oh, the Satanic Panic.
We need to get our robes. We need to get our Ouija boards.
That's right. Get our chick tracts out, baby.
We need to summon a Karen to be able to ensure we are fully vested before we dive in. So let's recap a little bit. Early 70s, D&D gets printed and then later becomes Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. There is a separation around the time that In Search of the Unknown B1 is published with the boxed set, Mike Carr's adventure that we did in the previous episode, where D&D starts to bifurcate a little bit from the early original Dungeons & Dragons rules. You have the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons rule set, which are intended for more advanced audiences, people who have been playing a little bit longer or who might be, deeper into the TTRPG hobby by this point in history, or people who have played early editions of Dungeons and Dragons. The basic sets, the B1 modules, were intended to get people interested and knowledgeable about how to play and run Dungeons and Dragons games. So in 1981, we have seen the printing of B1, In Search of the Unknown by Mike Carr, followed up by B2, Keep on the Borderlands from Gary Gygax, which would replace Carr's module in that basic set. So those two early adventures were important foundational documents in the early days of like D&D's heyday for popularity. Mm-hmm. Another important thing to note is that there is a big kind of a wall in the company between the management layer that was running things and the creative department, which was an entirely different building than the management for TSR, and who saw each other as almost adversarial parts, according to former developers with the company. We're using a lot of different sources to tell this story. We're working with interviews from Wired in 2018 involving several different developers and artists. The Secret History of the Racy Module that almost ruined D&D from Jim McLaughlin. We are working with a Grognardian interview from 2008 that author Jean Wells of the original Palace of the Silver Princess gave, telling her own version of what occurred. And we're also looking at a couple of different websites that have either fan remembrances as well as deeper dives into Palace of the Silver Princess, one of which is the Alexandrian, who in 2019 gave a very thorough look at the differences between the original orange-covered B3 Palace of the Silver Princess and the revised green cover by Tom Moldvay, with credit to Gene Wells on the cover as well. So how did all this happen? What does it mean to early days of D&D? And if you have a copy, an orange copy of this lying around, how much could it be worth?
Yeah, get that shit graded. Send that to PSA.
Well, there's been a few instances of this module being sold. We'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. But first, let's get some details in. The original orange cover of B3 Palace of the Silver Princess was published 1981 by Gene Wells, author who had been hired in the company, a friend of Gary Gygax's. Gygax at the time recognizes that there is a need to expand the hobby outside of the younger demographic that has really taken to it. And so hiring Gene Wells, a friend of his, was intended to be able to provide more female authorship in the adventuring department, in the adventure writing department. Now, Wells would tell Grognardian that she worked very closely with the editor who helped her get everything going, Ed Sollers. She patterned her early adventure, her first adventure, after Mike Carr's B1. She said that she believed that she was supposed to create an adventure like that one that was intended to give DMs a world that they could make their own. Mm-hmm. And that's a very important thing to remember. Mike Carr's Into the Unknown differed significantly from its structure as compared to B2 Keep on the Borderlands by Gary Gygax. Mm-hmm. Carr used old school dungeon keying in his In Search of the Unknown. Dungeon keying is when monsters and treasures are left empty and blank on the dungeon descriptions, and instead rooms that have spaces for monsters or treasure are keyed at the very beginning when the DM sets the dungeon up. This is done either by choosing from a table or rolling randomly, more often than not, on a table of available monsters and treasure in order to randomize where those things go. This also would allow, because you could write in pencil into those blanks, for the dungeon to be reused or to be quickly edited if players were to clear out a section, leave, and then come back in, a very common practice in older school dungeons. Keep on the Borderlands departed from this practice and instead assigned specific numbers of monsters and specific treasures to each of its dungeon rooms. So when Wells is sitting down to write and create Palace of the Silver Princess, she is working under Carr's model, the older school model that would allow for a more fill-in-the-blanks version of Dungeons and Dragons. There are empty rooms that are not fully defined. There are empty spaces within that where DMs are told you can fill in these blanks on your own, or to consider them off limits because of collapses, and then later to reopen them.
Yeah, and we have gone through, if you haven't listened to the old or the earlier episodes of the podcast where we talked about In Search of the Unknown and Keep on the Borderlands, they are, for being released back-to-back years, 78, 79.
They're released really rapidly succession. Remember, D&D is, and this is actually a big part of this, D&D is so gangbusters that at this time, the management layer at TSR is saying, we don't care, get us new stuff, push it out the door. Because they were losing money by taking time for quality control.
Right. People had discovered this game sort of all at once, and the hunger for just stuff to buy was palpable. I kind of would, if you were into the sort of early Mandalorian, when the Mandalorian TV series came out, and how it was clear no one at Disney was ready for how crazy people were going to go for Baby Yoda, and how it was like, we need to get out some sort of Baby Yoda merch. We hadn't anticipated the first episode dropping and everyone immediately going to Amazon, hammering in, give me Baby Yoda stuff. That's kind of the way this worked. Like D&D.
I need to buy the baby.
I want to buy the baby.
I want to buy the baby.
With my Prime. And, so this is very similar. It's like D&D has exploded in popularity, and people who maybe aren't quite ready to run their own game, they need these modules. And as we've previously, and if you haven't listened to those episodes, that's totally fine. You don't need to. But you get a really good idea of like how keying works in Search of the Unknown, where it's like, oh, you have a little room. There might be some rats or some kobolds or whatever. And then Keep on the Borderlands is much more what we would recognize today as a module, right? It's like,
as a published adventure.
Yeah, as a published adventure. It gives you a map, and inside of the individual rooms there's 6 goblins here, and there's 14 hobgoblins here, and they're this and they're that, and there's these treasures and these traps and these things that make the encounters different. It feels a little foreign, the keying, to us now. But my reaction to it was pretty positive. I was like, oh yeah, I get this, because you can kind of have fun. And if you want to reuse this module later, run it for somebody else, it's different. So you can play another character if you really liked it. So yeah, really interesting. And interesting that, because as we talked about in Search of the Unknown, Keep on the Borderlands, In Search of the Unknown came out and was starting to be sent out everywhere. And Gary Gygax was like, hey, I should maybe put one of my adventures in there, as opposed, since I made this game up, right? Allegedly, because
it's such a good opportunity to be able to make money, because the cost of return, all that we went into in the previous.
But it's interesting that this would then be patterned after the one that was replaced, as opposed to the one that did the replacing.
Well, part of that might be because Jean Wells was actually a DM herself. She DM'd in college. She was originally one of the original sages for Sage Advice.
Really?
So yeah, and she and her friends played D&D in, I wouldn't necessarily say unconventional ways, but they played D&D the way that a lot of people did in the early days, and they had a lot of influences on those games, had influences on Wells's own modules. One of the more contentious things we're going to get into had to do with new creatures that had been created by Wells to go into the module. Most of which were based off of the antics or monsters that were made up by friends of hers in games that she had been in.
Interesting. So almost almost like don't put your in jokes in our module. We want the monsters that we own, that we have determined to be more marketable.
Well, in jokes were also possibly one of the single greatest reasons why this module,
and that's I think
pulled.
what people at least have heard about the most, especially because you described it as a little racy. Which is well, we'll get into that. You continue. Please continue.
So we're going to get into a little bit of contention of kind of the events that occur. For some of this, we're relying on the interview that Wire did with developers and artists Kevin Hendricks and Lawrence Schick, among others, back in 2018, as well as Wells's own interview with Grognardia in 2008. So Wells's B3 is getting published, is going through the process of being worked on while the Satanic Panic is happening. So there is a significant pressure on the bosses at TSR to avoid any more negative attention, and a new module with something that even comes close to the kind of thing that the moms who are behind this would wave around in front of TV cameras is the last thing that they want to see.
Right.
So Wells told Grognardia in 2008 that all of her designs were approved through Ed Sollers and their boss, editor and designer, Harold Johnson. Her new monsters, descriptions, all the different things. One in particular, a Decapus, was a monster that would create an illusion in order to lure people in before attacking them. And the contents of all of that, she says, went through editorial and they all approved. Where things were different, some say, is that artists and Wells didn't quite see eye to eye on things. Wells herself says that artists did not read or stick to her descriptions of art. She specifically says that Errol Otis, one of whose pieces of art were the specific things called out that we're going to describe in a bit, did not correctly use or mistook some of her art descriptions before creating the monsters that she had described, which again are all from Wells's own games that she is trying to give the visualization of what this thing is to someone else within the company. So they go through the process. The designs are approved. The art is made. It lands in Wells's lap right before publishing. None of it is what she wants. None of it is good. And she's going back and forth and saying, like, this isn't right. But nothing can be changed at this point. The publishing day comes out, and the bosses uptown flip their shit. The bigwigs call in Wells and Sollers and accuse them of pushing S&M to kids. There's this piece of art that's in the manual that is kind of the infamous piece that this is all surround. One of which, this piece, is a woman who is tied up by her own hair and surrounded by men attacking her with knives and tearing pieces of her clothing off.
So Bayonetta, basically.
I mean, Bayonetta's like grandmother. Maybe.
Nana Bayonetta.
Bayonetta taking a nap and like, what? Is it showtime already? Like, even today, pretty much most of the people who were around, like Hendricks and Schick, say it's not a big deal. But you got to remember that at the time in the 80s, there were a lot more pressure coming from the Satanic Panic push.
Right. And it was all these claims that weren't real, but just like you said, you could kind of tell why they wouldn't necessarily want, especially something like that that's both kind of, well, I'll just say that's both kind of demony and sexual. It's like the two thing, like this ain't, I mean, some people consider that chocolate and peanut butter, but for Moms Against D&D, that is not like those two things are not going together at all. Like you can't have one if you have both. It's a nuclear fire. Like no.
The salaciousness of our current day discourse is definitely, not something that's brand new.
Yeah. Right.
This has been happening before. So because of this piece of art, That kind of started things off. But there's a second piece of art that's talked about as well, a full page piece depicting one of Wells's new monsters called an Ubu, Ubues. Wells says that this monster came about because of a friend of hers during games who would run around frantically portraying a 3-headed giant, would have 2 heads, one on the outsides and then 1 head in the middle, and they would get into arguments with the heads all describing what they were going to do and who they were going to eat. And the middle head she always felt sorry for because he never really had any arms or any ability to do anything. He just kept trying to convince the other 2 to listen to him, and they never would. So this is something that, you know, she has fond memories of. She's trying to bring this monster in. And the artists took this and put female and male heads on the same bodies, creating something that is a little just like, what are we looking at here? And then at the same time, Hendricks and Schick said that there were caricatures made using the faces of those monsters. And this is where it's still a little unclear. A lot of the apocryphal stories are that, one of the faces is Gary Gygax, and he got mad. Some of the others are that they are the Bloom brothers who are in charge, who are the other 2 in charge of TSR that are often viewed as the ones who stole it from Gygax. There's other belief that they are, I think Hendricks and Schick were the ones who said that they were actually supposed to look like fired employees who had been fired recently, which was also a source of the bad blood between the designers, the creators, as well as the management. Right.
Because we're
neither side are talking to each other.
Right. Because we're just a couple of years away from the big of the Satanic Panic sort of really starting to take its toll, and the big firing in 83, where we've talked about it in other episodes, but it kind of keeps coming around, where TSR went from, I want to say 330 down to like 30 employees. Like, it was, most people lost their jobs. So this is in the lead up to that. So you can imagine if you've ever been in a situation like that, weird stuff tends to happen. I had always heard the story that it was like because you hear it's like the scrappy hippies from Minnesota or Wisconsin, and they were bought out by the corporate suits, and that it was the heads were the 3 corporate suits, and they got it to publish, and when the 3 corporate suits, whoever they were, saw it, they lost their shit, right? So it's interesting that it's like no one could really. Now you said this was created, and that the one, so that one was not published, or was published. And the problem, and the one that everyone considered to be problematic, was the one that had female and male heads.
So both of these pieces of art were part of the reasons why management blew their tops. If you listen to one side of the story, people say that it was because the bosses thought that the caricatures might be about them. There's a lot of different things that are going back and forth. Hendricks, Schick, and others said that there were lots of in-jokes that were being, kind of thrown around at that time. And as a result, like, if you weren't in on the in-joke, you could get the wrong idea.
Sure. I mean, I would argue maybe not the best place for in-jokes that could be easily misconstrued if you're not one of 3 people on Earth, considering all this is going out to more than 3 people.
Now, in that 2018 Wired interview, Hendricks and Schick also, were very upfront about we were thumbing our nose and we were just kind of stuck backs. They also had a lot of disparaging things and criticisms about Wells's content, describing it as little more than self-insert fantasizing about her Society of Creative Anachronism character, that a lot of the adventure things that they saw didn't quite make sense. And this kind of feeds into the stories that Wells on the creative and editorial side and the artist side didn't quite see eye to eye. There were also reports that, Gygax had a very hard and fast rule for modules, which were basically like, for his modules, you didn't touch the writing. And that extended to Wells's modules, who was a friend of his outside of work. So she was seen as being a little more like in cahoots with, or in connection with management at that point. So again, many different elements all pushing together, creating this powder keg that all blows up the day that B3 is published. The top brass said it can't go. So they recall absolutely every copy, between the 5,000 and 10,000 copies that were created. People go into the offices where personal copies have been placed on all the employees' desks overnight and remove all of them.
Wow.
Memos are going out. The people being told, you have to turn in these copies.
Right.
So, of course, naturally, everybody starts scoring.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I got 3 copies, baby.
Yep.
I've got them under my coat like I'm selling watches on the streets of New York. You want Palace of the Silver Princess? I got 4 Palaces of the Silver Princess right here.
I heard it was Penis of the Silver Princess.
Oh, no,
which was an actual thing that they used to describe it.
What? That doesn't even make sense. Well, I assume it doesn't make sense. Of course, we start the module and Russell's like, well, here are your pre-made penis version characters. Wait a minute. I was sold a bill of goods. Penis.
Now, there were a number of disparaging nicknames for the module made by artists about it as it was going through production. Because many of the artists said they didn't want anything to do with it because of the factors going on with Wells, her connection to Gygax, and the overall content within it. Yep. I said, there's so many different pieces and competing sides to this. So
could it have been? I guess we're just spitballing about shit we don't really know anything about. But if the artists didn't want to work on it, could it have been like specific retribution by an artist?
That's where I'm looking at this as, I've been in toxic workplaces before, right? And you're looking for any outlet that you can.
Sure.
And if it's like, if there's a thing that gets me fired, then I say, send it. There's a whole variety of things that could happen. Whether or not it was an artist who specifically said, well, screw this person, I'm not going to listen. Whether or not it was an unconscious bias that drove someone to see that, there's not enough to be able to say affirmatively, which is part of the reason why so many different versions of the story have proliferated the way that they have.
Right. I mean, it's like that story. I don't know if you've ever heard, like, corporate companies will try to punish employees by giving them like shit gigs, right? There's the rumor, I think I've heard enough where I'm assuming it's true, that like if an animator that was working on for like, I guess it would be DreamWorks, was working on one of their movies, and like if they didn't like their work, they would send them to work on this other movie that everyone thought was going to fail called Shrek. And it was called Getting Shrek'd. So if you were considered to be a shitty artist at DreamWorks, your punishment was you're going to get Shrek'd. And
you were sent to the swamp.
You were sent to the swamp to work on Shrek, which then ended up, I can't remember the movie they were initially working on. They were basically getting fired off of, but it's like it pales in comparison to the like the cultural impact that Shrek ended up having.
The monstrosity,
right? But like. It's that sort of thing. It's corporate going, okay, well, if you don't want to work on if you're not good enough to work on our pet project, we're going to punish you by giving you different work. And it's like, okay, you're clearly trying to kill something. They tried to kill Shrek, clearly, but Shrek cannot be killed. Shrek will never die.
But meanwhile, Palace of the Silver Princess, the orange copy written by Gene Wells, did in fact wind up in a grave, specifically a landfill out behind the management office.
Crazy.
They gathered him up, they sent him out, and they sent TSR's handyman, this big burly bear man, to watch over getting them dumped into the landfill to make sure people didn't sneak off with a case of them or something. Which means, as those employees who were snaking away their own copies did, they were heads up about the fact that this was going to be a collectible.
Oh yeah.
By 1984, copies of the original orange-covered version started to sneak out, selling at auction for as much as $300. Ooh. By the 2000s, copies were trading for between $1,000 and $3,000. And according to Wired, there is kind of apocryphal YouTuber out there who referenced a Gene Wells signed copy sold for $5,860.
Wow.
So
go Gene. I hope you got some of the money. I hope you got that money.
Right. Well, Gene Wells passed away in 2012. due, I believe, to an illness that she had referenced a couple times but didn't speak a lot about publicly. So she never really, I don't think, saw the return of the Palace of the Silver Princess, because D&D, after being taken over by Wizard of the Coast, actually put it out on their website.
Yeah, I've heard that. It was like they were celebrating like an anniversary or something like that. And I guess the roar of people, the legend of it had grown so large that they were like, fine, fuck it, here you go. These people are most of these people don't work here anymore. That was another company we don't care about. Knock yourself out, kids.
So the two pieces that exist for Palace of the Silver Princess can be found. The original orange cover copy that Wells wrote with the original artwork in it is available on PDF that Wizards put directly out. You can find it on the Internet Archive.
For sure.
And the other version, which was revised and released by Moldvay, who was the Tom Moldvay wrote the green cover revision version that had Gene Wells' name on it, but the majority of her take on it was removed. The Alexandrian website dug into the differences between them and really cast it in a couple of specific ways.
Sure.
The first is that you can really draw a line here from where, when Wells's copy was squashed, it kind of ended the old school sandbox keying adventures dungeon modules that we had seen prior to this. The cars, the kind of old school modules. All those were no longer being published. Instead, the versions that Gygax and Moldvay created, with all of the things filled in and everything in place for you to pick up and run as is, all of those became kind of the standard by which D&D adventures would look like moving forward.
And basically stays to this day.
Yeah. Another big difference between the two is that the original version from Wells tells a story and a legend about the Palace of the Silver Princess as if it happened long, long ago. Main characters: Princess Argenta, the Dragon Rider, a ruby known as My Lady's Heart. All of that is something that has faded deep back into legend, and the players are hearing about it and potentially investigating it. Meanwhile, in the Moldvay version, this has happened a few weeks back. There is a thing that's happened, is an evil that is rising, and villagers need you to go deal with it. So it's very much more a directed call to action.
Right. Well, I mean, that's another similarity to In Search of the Unknown, because in Search of the Unknown, when you get to, say it with me, Castle Quasqueton, all that stuff is like the polycule has happened and they're all gone and dead and you don't know what's happened to them. It's like a mystery. And it's literally the name of the book is In Search of the Unknown. It's the worst name ever, but it is what it is. But so yeah, that's interesting that it would even stay thematically on that sort of line where it's like, oh, all this interesting stuff happened forever ago. Now it's your job. Like you don't know what you're going, if you explore the Palace of the Silver Princess, you don't necessarily know what you're going to really, like, what's true, what's false, what's rumor, what is actually a dragon that's there to kill you.
Right. And if you dig into kind of the now kind of present of Palace of the Silver Princess, it is still looked at in both of these lenses, right? It's looked at as this weird moment in history where two different versions of how D&D should kind of look like in published modules, one kind of faded and the other solidified, but also in a kind of loss to that more open-ended, DM-driven creative space that you can fill in. There are lots of people online that wax poetic about why they like Palace of the Silver Princess in the old version, the original version, and you can find copies of it for able to see it and play just free on the internet. So our podcast is going to take that road. The road perhaps a little less traveled.
We're taking a side.
We are headed towards...
What team are we on, Russell?
We are on the Wellsian orange cover version of Palace of the Silver Princess. We're going where the Ubus tread. Woo! We're going where all the weirdness is, so that we can kind of view this as if it had been sent out the door and put into our hot little hands from the very beginning.
I've got my leather daddy gear on. Russell's going to put the ball gag in. Let's make some magic.
I didn't know what some people were going to tell about our usual nightly activities, but okay, sure. All right. So on the very, very front cover of this book, you're going to see a big green, kind of warty looking creature with lots of different tendrils, and it's really, really, really sharp teeth. It almost looks a bit like a cross between a beholder and a displacer beast. And it's menacing this dude with an axe, and he's got armor on. He's ready to go.
Dude, okay, so that is definitely shit. Mace is gonna kill me. Audrey, that's Audrey too. You can't sneak Audrey you can't sneak Audrey 2 from Little Shop of Horrors past me. That's 100% Audrey 2. Maybe Audrey 1, I don't know. That's it looks like Audrey 2 sans pot.
Yep.
So what is the I'm trying to find the green. Is the green cover the same? It's just green?
The green cover is the same. It's just green, and it has a slightly different text on the front of it, and it has Tom Moldvay and Gene Wills as the authors credited on top of it. Yeah. There are going to be some differences that we'll note a little bit from time to time, but the big ones we've already covered. That the original orange cover is a dungeon that you would key and bring in monsters to. The other one is one that has already included a lot of monsters. There were also some changes to mapping. There is some disagreement about whether Wells included everything needed, or whether or not there were some things in it that were obvious and just not noticed the first time, or if they were intentionally left blank and a little vague for DMs to fill in, as has been described. Right. So the green creature on the front of it is a Decapus or a Decapus. It is the thing that Gene Wells created as part of Palace of the Silver Princess. It survived the purge because it was the monster that was on the color front cover. They kind of needed to save the money.
We have this art we need to make. So did it stay in its did it stay a Wellsian Decapus, or did they change what it can do?
We'll find out. So here is our box text. Years ago, the valley was green and animals ran free through golden fields of grain. The Princess Argenta ruled over this peaceful land, and the people were secure and happy. Then one day, a warrior riding a red dragon appeared in the skies over the princess' castle, and almost overnight, the tiny kingdom fell into ruin. Now only ruins and rumors remain, and what legends there are tell of a fabulous ruby still buried somewhere within the Palace of the Silver Princess.
Yeah, he said the name of the book.
That's the name of the movie.
Yay! Yep. Interesting. So yep. It's again very much, well, not very much, like In Search of the Unknown. You have heard of fabulous treasure. You have heard of in this forgotten land where this thing may or may not have happened forever ago. Get on your horse and ride. Go. Yep. Go west, young man. Go find that ruby.
Now, as a reminder, the B series of adventures were created initially to teach new DMs how to play. So we see some of that kind of Cars influence in the very beginning of the module. So if you go into the introduction, a great many of the things found in the Palace of the Silver Princess are there to add color and to give the DM ideas upon which to expand. This module has been specially designed to give the beginning DM, as well as the more experienced DM, a framework on which to build a whole dungeon complex. This module can also be used as the basis for an ongoing campaign, as it provides rumors, legends, and other information that give a campaign foundation and background. To expand the dungeon, the DM need but open up the blocked passageways and add new and challenging dungeon levels. This should be done only after most of the encounter areas have been explored.
Interesting.
Many of the rooms have spaces for monsters, treasure, and or traps. Some examples have been given of how to stock these rooms in other areas of this module. By leaving some areas blank, the DM can use creativity to add challenge to the module and make it fit into his or her world or campaign.
Creativity in my Dungeons & Dragons?
Yeah.
I don't think so, sir.
Yep. This module, like all D&D products, is a guideline to use as a creative basis for your own campaign. It is designed to teach a new DM how to design and run a D&D adventure while not being too difficult for low-level adventurers and new players. Good luck and enjoy. From there, the module goes forward into specific Dungeon Master information in order to provide a little bit of detail to get people started, describing the dungeon as a whole. It mentions that there are some dead soldiers come from an unnamed army at the very entrance. It is up to the DM to decide where they came from, why they're in the palace, and any other information concerning the dead soldiers. They could be from a lost city, from a hidden fortress of highly skilled thieves and fighters, or from a forgotten race or tribe of people. The DM could even have these soldiers be a scouting party for a larger brigade who plan on taking the ruined palace and making it a fort or base station from which to work. The possibilities are as endless as the imagination of the DM. This is where I am firmly in the Wells Carr camp.
Sure.
I am absolutely in favor of big empty spaces that I am allowed to doodle on in any way I wish.
And I like that they set it up very specifically to say, this is a good opportunity to sow seeds for something that may come after you've gone through this entire module, right? You can say these, you can say as simple as you want to say, the soldiers that you find have a certain crest on their tabard. You don't have to explain it in the moment, but later, more guys like this are going to show up. You're going to wonder why they were there. And that's something that I feel like you don't get until you get into several years down the road, where you get more, as opposed to modules, you get more like adventure paths that are created that go from, that either go through a tier, or in some cases a 1 to 20, where you have that cohesive through line through everything. So to me, that's really interesting. On the flip side, though, I can see some DMs who are new maybe being a little overwhelmed and saying, okay, well, I'm going to try to do something and then have it maybe not work out the way they want, maybe being a little bummed out. But I think overall, including it is better than the alternative.
And again, I want to preface this with another piece. Just because I prefer this kind of dungeon, just because I might prefer this to Tom Mulvey's version, does not mean that Mulvey's not great. Does not mean that the Green is not an awesome adventure to run as well. This is just part of why I can look at this and just say, you know what? I'm willing to forgive a couple of small oddities, because when you really dig into it, there's a lot of stuff that's odd about D&D.
Oh, yeah. And the oddities...
Just because it was done a certain way by a certain person does not necessarily mean it must be the canon.
For sure. And the oddities is what makes this ripe for us to talk about 40 plus years later.
Yeah, 43, yeah. 44 years later, yeah. So there is a legend in here that gives DMs a bit of background over some important pieces in the dungeon. It specifically is like, things were happy and frolicky and wonderful. There are ruby mines that are here. The Princess Argenta had dwarves that lived with her and worked in the mines, and, everything was great. And then they found, this is going to sound very familiar, they found a gem, a giant gem, a gem the size of an apple, a ruby called My Lady's Heart. And things went to shit.
Right.
Sound familiar at all?
Yeah. That sounds like it could be several things.
It's not quite the Arkenstone, but
right. Well, I mean, and my first thought, even as you were describing it, this princess that lives in this castle with all these dwarven miners, what does that sound like?
Yep.
Snow White. Let's,
Oh, yeah.
Do they have names that match their personalities? Can they all whistle a jaunty tune?
Not quite.
Like, is her voice the highest pitched thing you've ever heard in your life?
Well, it does have a whole lot of wild birds with long, colorful tails and bright faces, and tiny animals darting about the.
I mean, how many of these things haven't had some version of the Disney forest?
Right.
So we might
But
as-
who's to say, to go back to Shrek, she doesn't just start singing Barracuda and stick them on everyone.
That's true. That's fair.
So, My Lady's heart is found, and according to the legend, Princess Argenta holds a grand ball, inviting the elves and dwarves in the area, as well as anyone else, to come and view this ruby. And also to provide...
Come look at my shiny rock.
Yeah, but also to, like, provide food and festivities and, you know, all this stuff. And this guy shows up who is absolutely... not here for good times.
Well, no.
On the eve of the grand ball, people poured into the valley from everywhere. How so many people had heard about the party, no one knew. But the princess did not mind. She was proud of the ruby and wanted everyone to see My Lady's heart. She should not have been so eager to show the ruby, as one guest was interested in more than its beauty alone. He had come to steal it.
No. Russell.
His no.
Someone would steal the largest ruby that anyone's ever seen.
Well, the narrator said it, so, you know, we kind of have to roll with it, right?
It feels improbable that a big party to show off your giant, priceless, shiny rock might attract, I don't know, ne'er-do-wells.
So here's where we start to get into a little bit of the raciness. His eyes also roamed freely to the princess. And he gazed upon her as much as he gazed upon the brilliant gem. Princess Argenta saw this and, in her innocence, smiled back at him. Two dwarves and an elf saw this.
Yes.
And when they challenged him after the party, they were never seen or heard from again.
Oh, man. I was hoping they would succeed. I could see them off, like they're off in the side there going, "Do you see Brown Eyes over there looking at the princess? I'm gonna whip that ass."
To quote another D&D'er who I just watched, Sakoyama, "You're toast."
You're toast, bud.
Shout out to Dimension 20 and Cloudward Ho, my new favorite jam. Anyway, many weeks after the party, a red dragon was seen in the skies of the valley. The dragon burned the rich land with its breath and terrorized the gentle people of the valley. The land was left scorched and barren. Those valley people, unfortunate to get close enough to the dragon, but fortunate enough to live, swore that they saw a man in silver and blue armor riding on its back. Some folks still say they see a red dragon in the skies of the valley. Many say they see a saddle on the dragon's back and loose reins near its head. The valley is now dead. The palace is in ruins. No one knows exactly what happened to the princess. Some believe the man on the dragon carried her away. Other things, they killed her and stole what treasure he could find. But all stories say that the ruby, My Lady's heart, is still hidden in the palace.
Really?
I don't know how anyone would know that or not.
Oh, we don't know what happened to the princess. She might be dead.
Right.
She might have been kidnapped. We don't know what happened to all of the... But we definitely know for certain that ruby's still in there.
Now, this is where the adventure departs significantly in the Moldvay version versus the original Wells version. Because the Moldvay version very explicitly says that the My Lady's heart... Let me find it. Something happened that caused crops to wither in the fields, cattle to grow sick, and the valley to begin to die.
Beyond the red dragon?
This was all the day after the celebration. The dragon in this one, white. The rider, dressed all in black, has pale skin, long blonde hair, short blonde beard. Since Haven was noted for its hospitality, the princess invited the stranger to stay at the palace. She also granted his request to escort her to the celebration of My Lady's heart. At midnight, a disaster struck. Dark clouds hid the moon, a freezing wind blew through the valley. The crops withered in the fields, cattle grew sick, the valley began to die. From the palace came an explosion, and parts of the walls came tumbling down. When the dust cleared, it could be seen a ruby glow surrounded the entire palace. Haven now lies in chaos. Raiding bands of orcs, goblins, and hobgoblins terrorize the countryside. The disaster happened so suddenly, citizens are confused and helpless.
I'm confused and feel a little helpless too. This seems like a lot of stuff that just sort of happened, and then more stuff happened, and we don't really know what's going on.
Oh, there's a couple more things introduced in the Moldvay version. There are protectors, a magical race from the land of fairy. Mysterious green beings, a gentle folk, and their magic helps to ward off evil, and they help the crops grow and the land of Haven to prosper. They get introduced.
Okay. One day this podcast is going to have video, and you are going to see my face where I'm like, okay. If I was the editor, okay, bud. You're doing okay. Here's the box of things you're doing. See how big this box is? Look, I'm gonna rattle it around. You're gonna see all the things you're doing. Ready? Okay. Here's the number of things I want you to be doing. Okay, I'm gonna rattle it around. You're gonna hear it. You know you didn't hear anything. It's because you're doing too much. Like do two things. Do two things. You know what's good? Party. Maybe a sketchy guy, a scrub. Or a busta, depending on your depending on what the parlance that you go with. Then that happens, and then dude with red dragon comes by, burns the fields, burninating the countryside, burninating the peasants. That we love. We're on board. There's a party, and then there's a mysterious guy with a dragon, and then he's there, and now he's her date. And then there's these other races that do this. And then after that, not with the dragon. And then the things are dying and no one knows what. Too much.
Oh, do you want to know the rest of the story?
That's not it.
Oh, no. Goodness, no. In the Moldvay version, one of these protectors, these fairy creatures that have been protecting the valley and helping it grow, appear to the players in their dreams and guide them to the valley in order to protect Haven by destroying the evil that has struck. The evil is the ruby. Instead of My Lady's Heart, it has a different name, the Eye of Arik, Arik, an ancient being of evil, great power, and who is using the ruby to strike out at the world in order to grow its influence and become this power in the area. It gets even more complicated.
This is what this feels like to me. And I'm not going to shit on this. I'm sure this is super fun. And I mean, I don't know how either one of these go, so I shouldn't really pick a side. But I will say, this really feels like the author had some cool ideas that he really liked and was maybe planning to put them in his own adventure that he was going to write. And then all this bullshit happened, and they're like, hey, we need you to rewrite The Palace of the Silver Princess and take out all this stuff that we have issues with. And he says, cool. But instead of just taking that stuff out and trying to retain the core of the story, or even like a semblance that goes with the title of the book, right? It's like, oh, this will be a good opportunity for me to use all this other stuff that I already wanted to do. But he still had to have that framework of the Palace of the Silver Princess because it was still there and he still felt like he had to use it. So it's like, this is like, as we record this, I shouldn't even mention this because God knows when this is going to come out. Like that new John Wick movie, The Ballerina, just comes out. This is what that is. This is The Palace of the Silver Princess presents white dragons and fairy protectors in your dreams. Evil Eye of Arik. Like, that's what that is. Like, we have the framework of the palace, but we've hung all this whole other adventure on, and we have to make the two come together, and they're just not. The math is as we say, not mathing.
Now, here is where I'm actually going to push against that a little bit, just a little bit. And that is because I actually see this in a slightly different lens. Moldvay essentially did what Wells told DMs to do. He took this,
okay, all right,
and he took the blank places and he turned it into something that he would run, which is what the original purpose of the module was. It was to say, hey, here's this, here are the basics. We've got a lot of stuff that's kind of like, formless so that you can put your own form into it. Where it becomes different is when it is published as the thing.
Yeah.
And then there is like, oh, this is the only right way that you're supposed to do this. And that's one, not why D&D is such a great thing. Two, not the way that I prefer to roll, because I'll go back to my own campaigns and just be like, canon? It's good canon. We're going to do whatever the hell I want at the moment.
You're right.
But also to like, that's why I can't really come down and say like Moldvay, because one, it's not. Putting an evil that is very clear and present from the beginning and a very clear call to action to go smite evil is better than just, there is a dungeon that we explore because we explore dungeons.
Sure.
And that is kind of one of the chief criticisms that I have as a storyteller and as a DM. There are very little stakes other than just like go into it. Like it feels more like a board game playing game than it does a narratively driven epic adventure.
Sure.
One is a board game, one is an adventure.
I don't know. I don't necessarily think I would go that far. I do agree with you, though. It really does feel like someone, if you're like, hey, you have somebody who's been playing in the same D&D game for like a year and a half, and you're like, without giving me any context, tell me what happened the last session of D&D you had. That's exactly what you would get. Well, we found the Eye of Aaron, and then the princess's date who has the white dragon. It's got all this back stuff that happened beforehand, right? That you would sort of need to know. And it probably makes sense to the people who are in it, right? But I would say, for the original setup of Palace of the Silver Princess, the more baseline, the more I would say generally sensible, I feel like that you do have enough motivation to go in there, in that there's this giant fucking ruby that's worth, how much? I feel like the fact that all of this happened goes to set up the value of this ruby. And so if you're, and this great evil that was then done to the countryside because of I feel like you have enough of an unknown there, enough of a mystery that's going to pull in certain characters, certain players. You have enough of a treasure motivation that people are going to be like, hell yeah, I want to find. And on top of just the treasure motivation, you're also going to get I want to be world famous, I want to be infamous. Like it's a treasure hunt, right? And that's a classic storyline trope that we get into in D&D. What is, you got to find the thing high atop the thing to do the thing, right?
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why, like, I prefer for a published thing a lot more open space, because there's room to fill that in with your particular direction to go. So let's dig into a little bit more kind of what else there is here after the initial kind of setup. Once you go past that initial legend in the Wellesian adventure, you dig into a section that describes, much like we heard in some of the other adventures, hey, there's a whole lot of wilderness surrounding this area. Let's describe the area that this is in. And then there are paragraphs for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different places that are all part of this big kind of like generic fantasy looking map. It's got lots of rivers. It's got lots of woods and mountains. There's a place called the Abaddon Woods. It's a desolate place inhabited by evil beings, once believed to have been filled with unicorns, elves, fairies, and other fair creatures. Okay. Many expeditions attempted to destroy the evil lurking here, have ventured into the woods, and have never returned. And there's nothing else about it. Oh. That's awesome. A name that's as evocative as the Abaddon Woods. That's like, I'm already just like champing at the bit to just be like, I want to take this and turn it into a whole thing. And at the beginning, there is the kind of third level-ish D&D expert rules. Hey, we sell other things kind of thing. As play continues and characters adventure above third level, the DM may plan adventures into the neighboring wilderness, which is what all of these are suggestions for. But DMs are urged not to attempt wilderness adventures until players have reached expert level and are now using D&D expert game rules. Okay,
I like that. And so, and I can definitely see why not filling that out, that almost works as like a promo for moving forward, which I like. It's like we would call it in marketing, we call it like added value. We'll give you this extra thing.
Oh yeah,
you'll be able to do your
this
thing.
Is an entire campaign's worth of added value. Absolutely. In addition to just giving you a nice full page map to be able to show you're here at Golovia and you have to travel through all of this to reach the palace.
Look at all this other. I mean, what does the big new open world RPG? What do they always talk about?
just
the size of the map, how big the map is. Look at all these places you can go to. This is that. It's like, so you pull out your big map and you thok it down and you say, hey, everybody, here's where this is taking place. But and they can just, ooh, the Abaddon Woods. Ooh, it's like, it makes that exist without having you need to fill it, right? It's just like good world building. You throw something out there while you're talking about something and you make a mental note of it, and then you're like, oh, I'm going to flesh that out later. But that can be a thing.
Yep. Oh, yeah. I appreciate that we also went this long without discussing the thocking down of the size of your big map.
Well,
I think that was just like straight out
right.
the gate.
I do like to whip out my big map and thok it down occasionally just to make everybody marvel at it.
I like big maps. I cannot lie.
You other cartographers might deny. Yeah.
So another thing that's mentioned is NPCs. And specifically, there's a whole page given to one NPC, the Tinker and his daughter, who have a big Tinker's cart that is shown. And I think this was another piece of art that got removed because, people on carts going around that are Tinkers didn't quite want to make it.
I don't think I'm
gypsies.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. I don't think that consideration, from everything I've read, I don't think that consideration was a thing. I don't think they really started giving a shit about being culturally sensitive to the Romani people, which we should be, by the way. I don't think people really started.
No, I'm talking about it in terms of, I think they removed it because they didn't want to depict anything that the moms would find.
Okay. Okay.
And like mentioning they exist.
Sure. Okay, I got you. I get
the other reason why. Yeah. So anyway, but there's a whole section that's in this that's just dedicated to, hey, you may want to make some NPCs. This is an example of one of them. You can do lots of different things with NPCs if you want to make more to add to the campaign.
Sure. Okay.
And then we get down into one of the things that I really enjoyed from Into the Unknown, the rumors.
Oh, we do love a rumor table.
Yep. Jeremy, we've got 8 rumors to pick from. And just like before, some of them are not true.
Mm-hmm.
Give me a D8 roll and let's see what we get.
You would ask for a D8 roll? I don't have a D8 here. Okay.
It's not a gigantic table, but there's some goodies.
Okay, here we go. A 7.
We got a 7. All right. On a roll of 7, you're in a tavern and you overhear that a great cleric called Cathrandamus is roaming the country, aiding the sick and defending the just. It is said he cares not for riches, but only for spiritual gain. What do you think? True or false?
I think it's false because Cathrandamus sounds like a name someone would make up when they were like put on the spot to make up a name. Because they were like, well, there's this cleric that roams around and he doesn't care about anything but like his god, but he'll help you. And he'll say, oh, really? What's his name?
Randamus?
Kathy? No, that's a lady's name.
Yep.
Randamus? So I'm going to go with false.
Kathy Randall Amos. Just he sees all three standing at the table. It's a Kath Randamus. Yeah. Kath Randamus, the Dragon Reborn. Actually, this one is both true and false.
Okay. Well, that's helpful.
It is true. It is true. There is a cleric whose name is Cathrandamus, who is roaming the countryside.
However, but he's a dick.
He is. He cares about wealth more than anything.
How did this rumor start? What I'm going to do? I'm going to get back at that guy Cathrandamus by starting untrue yet weirdly positive rumors about him.
Yeah. He actually is also not the only game that a evil cleric has been.
That's right. Yeah,
we had that from Keep
on the Borderlands. Yeah,
but also in the Moldvay version, Cathrandamus is like the central villain, like a cleric summoned by the Eye of Eric in order to serve the evil that is in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. This is fascinating to me. How the little threads connect. That's really okay.
So give me another roll.
Rolled a 1.
All right. On a 1, you hear that a fierce young female fighter called Aliega has been seen in a few of the neighboring villages. I think this is meant to be Aaliyah or Alea because it's Lee, Liegh.
Yeah.
But it's with A's at the beginning and the end of it. Aaliyah.
It's Facebook. It's that girl you went to high school with. It's what she named her kid on Facebook.
Yeah.
It's Ashley's Aishalyee's second birthday. Yes, second birthday, and she's the best. Yeah, right.
A phonics derived unique name. Yeah. So Aaliyah, Aliega, has been seen.
That was really bad.
I stopped. It was so bad. Half of my brain stopped and said, "Get back here! Get back here and try that again."
I'm pretty sure that's Spanish for meatballs. Actually,
what would you like tonight? Aliega, mi madre. So a fierce young female fighter called Aaliyah has been seen in a few of the neighboring villages. Many folks say she carries a sword of ruby and is accompanied by 2 dwarves and a cleric. Some believe she might be a descendant of the Silver Princess.
I mean,
Jeremy, true or false?
This is a good rumor. Let me say that. This is a great rumor because it gives me...
not just because of how Aaliyah is.
Right. Well, that's actually the part I like about it the least. No, because it gives me like fable version. All this whole thing is keying fairy tale to me. Like everything is about the princess and the dwarves and the like classic absolutely freaking like Germanic fairy tale goodness. I'm gonna say this is true, and that's the princess and her retinue with the great ruby sword of the whatever.
You got it right.
Yeah, I was hoping so.
Before Snow White and the Huntsman, there was Aaliyah with her dwarves cleric and a sword of
ruby. Love it. Before Xena Warrior Princess, there was Aaliyah Warrior Princess.
There you go. So among your other rumors include rumors about the evil Baroness of Golovia, Lady Demise. Who was offered it's okay. Get ready for this one. It's D' HMIS.
HMIS.
I'm shocked that this is not a Y in the middle of it. It's only missing a Y for it to be like the quintessential fantasy name. DHMIS.
To quote,
so I said Demise, like Demise.
Sure. To quote the famous outtakes from the Baldur's Gate narrator, that is some fantasy ass bullshit right there.
From Golovia.
Ugh, that's also very Russia coded. This one's, I don't know. I feel like this one's false.
Here's the whole rumor. The evil the evil Baroness of Golovia, Lady the
Baroness Golovia,
the Baroness, has offered a reward to anyone who can bring her their ruby, known as My Lady's Heart. I don't know why we went like super French all of a sudden.
I love that. It's not French, my guy. I don't know what that was.
No,
it was hilarious though.
Well, it's terrible, is what it is. Jacques the Whipper is going to come take my accent away from me. Lady Demise claims to be the heir to the treasure, as she is the only living descendant of this Silver Princess.
I have played D&D with you for years. Never once heard this accent, and it is my favorite accent you've ever done.
Oh, God, don't tell me
How could you not? We had a game that I started, and I had a throwaway character who had the worst Russian accent ever. They decided he was the greatest, and they wanted to go to his country, and I spent a year speaking in a horrible Russian accent that I can now recall like it is a second voice. How did I never get this weird Swedish French hybrid accent from you? It's so good.
Good times.
This one I feel like has got to be false.
You are correct. However, it is also true.
Oh God. Okay. This is too. I like my things black and white.
Now,
too much gray.
The Lady Demise will, in fact, tell you true that she is the heir to the Silver Princess's throne. She is, in fact, the only living descendant of the Silver Princess, but she ain't giving you shit. Well, she is not offering a reward. That's the false part.
Okay. But so she's from Barovia or Monrovia or
The
wherever.
Baroness of Golovia. And if you actually, Golovia is one of the areas that's mentioned up in the middle of this. Golovia is a ruthless place filled with terror. The ruler of this chaotic nightmare is Lady Demise. Yeah. She rules the barony with a firm and unforgiving hand. To gain supreme rulership of the tiny barony, she killed her husband. A prime example of the type of laws her ladyship favors is one forbidding males, except those in her service, from being on the streets after sunset, unless accompanied by a female who is ages 15 or older. This law meets little resistance, as everyone fears her baronial guards. Though Demise's warriors are primarily male, her commanders are all females. Tough, chaotic women who instill fear by a mere gaze, and who fear little save Demise and the elite male warriors, who serve as her personal bodyguards and paramours.
So, answer me this. Riddle me this, Batman. Does this portion, the Gorovia and all that, does this exist in the green cover version?
Largely. Possibly check.
In the same way, this kind of XX chromosome pseudo fascist role reversal society sort of vibe.
Oh, you mean your early Menza Baranzan?
Yeah, right, absolutely. But somehow more obvious.
The answer is no. So the answer is no. It does not exist.
So what you're telling me, Russell, is this, and I don't know that I believe you, so tread lightly. That a lady wrote a module in which there was a role reversal female-led society where maybe boys were not allowed, and then there were some men at her workplace who maybe didn't like it. That does not track for me. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah.
In a classic Wanda Maximoff to Stephen Strange moment. Sure. And oh god, I'm going to have to bring another accent back.
This is the Russell Does Accents podcast.
AKA every podcast I've ever been on. The Stephen Strange character is actually R.A. Salvatore. You created a matriarchal society where the men are oppressed, and you're a hero, and I do it, and I am the villain. It does not seem very fair.
Yeah, I mean, that hits the nail on the head. Yeah.
Yeah. Why do guys get to make all guy villains, and it's totally fair and normal?
Totally cool. Well, I mean, if this was this was ruled by a ruthless baron who oppressed and I'm not saying they'd have you fighting on the side of the baron, but no one would be like, I don't know about that. That seems to stretch the bonds of what we can fantasize about.
Now, for those who might hear this last section and feel a little like put out because of it, here's the thing. If you are secure enough in yourself and your place in things that you could look at this and read this and say, this appears to be a role reversal. This appears to be something that is used as a lens for criticism to say, hey, what if we just did everything that already exists in most of these fantasy settings and we just flipped the genders? It may not make it's not realistic, it's not making any sense. Reminder, we're in fantasy and this is a role reversal scenario. It's not intended to be perfectly one for one. It is intended to be a lens through which we view and criticize, the way that Warhammer is. And yet people playing Warhammer seem to like to think that they're the fascists, and that's a good thing. And they miss the satire.
Missing the satire, I feel like, is a pretty common problem with with folks in this hobby. But I just wanted to say I find it hard to believe that they would pull this from the shelves. And they would say, well, there were some racy drawings. Ignore every module we've had in the past where we had to have a hot babe in all of them to keep everyone interested. We can't have, what is this? You can't have, this is racing. They have to change the.
I'm gonna go to a Hank Hill meme now. If those managers could read, they'd be pissed as hell.
Okay. For the record, I would try to sneak into Garovia. Let's move on
into Bolovia.
Yes, I would
Golovia.
Yeah, Golovia. Yeah. I would link in Call of the Wild, Breath of the Wild. I would full on do the dress up, do the whole. Yeah, I'm getting there.
You want another more recent example of similar kinds of like tropey kind of ways to approach this in fantasy. In Magic the Gathering, Wilds of Eldraine, or just Eldraine's, whatever, there is a faction that is representing black mana that has Ayara, the Queen of the Lochthwain, who is a very, very, very old elf queen, who is the matriarch of this place and has been for hundreds of years, and has a successive series of paramours who keep dying mysterious deaths. She sends them out in order to quest on her behalf, and they wind up dying. And then there's another competition for another paramour that she then sends out on a quest, and he winds up dying, and the cycle has repeated itself for hundreds of years.
Sure.
It's a very interesting, and Phyrexia comes in, Phyrexian things happen, but it's a very interesting, like, there are is this good satire? Is it a role reversal thing that is you could look at and be like, anyway, and move on?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's not subtle.
Right.
But
now.
it is
satire. Good satire is not meant to be subtle. Good satire is intended to draw attention and then use humor as a lens to look at reality.
And as for the queen elf with her paramours, if the paramours didn't want to be replaced, maybe they should get good at fighting. I'm just throwing that out there.
It's a skill issue.
It's a skill issue.
There's like hundreds of paramours that have died over the last several hundred years.
Feels like they maybe were betas. Maybe we need to. Maybe they should. Maybe they should take my 16-week course in how to be an alpha while and eating all my brain pills. And that's
quickly losing brain cells as you are talking.
Move on.
So anyway, there's a lot that in these first pages may seem like, do I need to know all of this to be able to run Palace of the Princess? And the answer is no. And that's part of the reason they were removed for the Moldvay version. It's like, we need you to have a reason to go to the dungeon. We need to get you to the dungeon, and you need to dungeon your asses off. And that's kind of the way it's set up. So here you've got pages and pages and pages of material that's almost like a mini campaign booklet that you could use to flesh out and grow this world. And it's that richness, that sandbox nature of the thing that is personally, like, it speaks to my cold and shriveled dungeon master heart. But all that aside, we have heard the rumors. We've met the Tinker and his daughter. We have marveled at the Baroness of Golovia, and we have proceeded onward towards the Palace of the Silver Princess, lying in ruins, and somewhere in the middle of it lies the great ruby, my lady's heart. That's the end of part 1 of Palace of the Silver Princess, and we haven't even gotten to the palace yet. But fear not, we're kicking down the doors and charging straight in, coming up in part 2. As always, we have a new release every other Tuesday. If you hate cliffhangers and like your podcasts long and all at once, we offer this entire episode from start to finish, uninterrupted, over on our Patreon. Find out more at our home base, analogdungeon.com. Hit like, subscribe, drop a comment, and ring the bell, or we'll cart you straight to the landfill. We will see you next time.